So good evening and welcome to our fraud awareness seminar. My name is Sergeant Anendu. I'm with the Montgomery County Police Department. I am assigned to the 4th District Station. This evening, what we wanted to do was put together a presentation that would help give people information about the scams that are out here. Many residents in the county give us a call or they come to the station and they tell us stories about certain calls they received, whether it was from the IRS or the Social Security Administration or some phantom police department requiring that they go grab green dot cars and put money on there, they would be and send it to an unknown location, or they would be arrested. But what we wanted to do was provide some information that would help prepare you and help you identify potential scams and then identify resources for you. Should you, hopefully not, but if you were to come across such a situation, you would know what your next steps would be and know what the resources are that are available to you. So tonight we have a representative from the Montgomery County Consumer Protection Agency, Ms. Tracy Razvani, I'm sorry. And she is going to do the presentation for us. I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on Ms. Razvani for you. Okay, so Ms. Razvani is an attorney with over 20 years legal experience in consumer protection law. She has authored numerous consumer protection publications, managed law firms in consumer protection class action litigation, and advocated on behalf of individuals and nonprofit clients. Tracy has extensive experience researching, interpreting, and applying consumer protection statutes, working collaboratively with professional and administrative staff, and in public speaking. Most importantly, Tracy shares our passion for helping others, and we look forward to her work or her leadership and insight in renewing the mission and reputation of the office. She's been with them for some time. And now I turn it over to you, Tracy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just to let you know, this is a recorded program and it will be available on the OCP's webinar playlist on our YouTube channel, Consumer Wise. The Montgomery County Office of Consumer Protection is here even through this pandemic, and the best way to reach us is at the email address that you see on the first slide here, consumer@montgomerycountymd.gov. If you email us, we will then have someone give you a call back. So what does our office do? Primarily, we handle disputes between merchants and consumers. With some limited exceptions, if you've paid money for a good or a service, you're not happy with the results, or maybe you never got what you thought you were paying for. If you file a complaint with us, we can try and help in either getting you the thing that you thought you were buying or get you your money back. We have consumer specialists who are available to speak with you by phone, by email, and even through walk-ins if you are looking to come in and have some folks look at some documentation and be able to help you in person. We are a law enforcement agency, so we're part of the public safety group in Montgomery County government. And what we do is we enforce the county's consumer protection laws. In addition to outreach and education programs like this program here today, we also regulate and license certain industries. So if you are getting your car repaired, they should be registered with our office. If someone's coming into your home to repair like TV or other consumer electronics or an appliance, they should be registered with us. If you are buying a new home, they should have our new home builder's license. If you're getting towed, hopefully you don't get towed, but they should be licensed with us as well. And as a service to the Montgomery County Police Department, we also license secondhand personal property dealers so that we can assist the county in making sure that stolen goods are not being resold through high-end consignment shops, pawn shops, things, those kinds of auctions, etc. So a few statistics about scams generally. Back in 2019, we were told about 50% of all calls to your cell phones came from robodialers. In 2020, only 60,000 reports of scams coming from international sources was reported. And so if 50% of the calls are coming in from robo-dialers and only 60,000 are reported as scams, you can imagine how underreported phone scams specifically are. They only reported $211 million in losses in 2020. And yes, I mean only reported $211 million. Again, that is incredibly underreported numbers. We as Americans field about 5 billion scam calls a month. And the only reprieve we had was in that early stages of the pandemic, because even the call centers had to socially distance and stop operating for a while. So we had a drop in early in May, but only about 40%. So who is typically targeted? Obviously, folks, I think that seniors are typically targeted, and they had been. And that's because there is this perception that there's a nest egg, that they're too trusting. They are most likely often live alone, so they don't have someone to bounce off a call or a fake or a scam that's come into the door to their mail. However, what we've seen more and more is that millennials are rapidly approaching the fraud target sweet spot for these criminals, because they're way too comfortable online. They trust websites too easily, and they lack the financial literacy that someone who's, you know, been around and working for 30, 40, 50 years would have had. Now, that's typical. Who's targeted today? Well, the pandemic has made everyone equal. It's been the great equalizer. And so everybody is targeted. Are you working? Are you not working? Are you young or are you older? Are you millennial, or were you Gen X or Gen Z? It doesn't matter. They are going after absolutely everybody right now with the pandemic, and we'll see about why. So what are some common scams? When Medicare cards were getting changed, the Medicare ID theft scam escalated to an amazing degree. You're going to see a lot of investment scams dealing with bogus cures and preventatives for COVID. Imposter scams, people calling, claiming to be the sheriff, the FBI, the police, Pepco, Washington Gas, asking you to pay immediately or you're going to have your power shut off. You're going to get arrested. You didn't go to, you know, you missed your jury duty. Whatever the threat is, they want you to either pay in gift cards or to wire money maybe, or send money through payment apps. We'll talk about payment apps later. Know the government is never going to want to get paid in that way. And gift cards are for gifts. If you can follow that mantra, you are probably going to be fairly safe from a lot of scams. Work from home scams were huge, still are. A lot of people unwittingly became money mules, and we'll talk about that some more later. Grandparent scams are a perennial, someone calling, claiming that your grandchild has been arrested or is being held ransom or is in jail, or, you know, and obviously the spin now is, oh, and everybody has COVID. So whatever the sob story is, they want you to pay money to get your grandchild, who you don't talk to because all you hear is someone screaming or crying in the background, to get them out of the situation. VA benefits are always a risk. All benefits are a risk. We saw a huge uptick in unemployment benefits going offshore. There's a lot of funeral and cemetery scams happening, especially with FEMA making payments for COVID-related deaths. That was an uptick. Financial exploitation by caregivers is a perennial. We'll talk about woodchucks, which is a special species of unlicensed home improvement contractors, a little later as well. You've probably received at least one phone call claiming your social security number has been inactivated. We have fielded a lot of inquiries from consumers who have put money in trust with the Social Security Administration from their bank accounts, only to realize that they had basically taken every cent they had in the bank and handed it over to criminals. Mortgage assistance fraud is going to be a continued increased scam, especially now with the homeowner assistance fund. starting up at the state. And obviously, the colder it gets, or the hotter it gets, the PEPCO cutoff notices coming to your phone are going to increase. So most people think that they can spot a scam, and Scam Advisor did a survey and they said 71% claimed they could spot a scam, yet 69% didn't spot the scam. And so they were able to do a survey of what people expected of themselves, and then they ran through some scenarios and realized that no, what they expected and how tricky these con men and criminals are they were underestimating them. So let's start off with telephone scams. So in 2021, as of August, $30 billion has been lost to phone scams. So if you're looking at the chart and you're thinking, well, gee, 2021 doesn't look that much worse than 2014, this is a partial year statistic. So imagine what it's going to be by the time January 1st rolls around. So we talked about who's at risk, and I said, you know what, it's not really seniors anymore. And as you can see, it bears it out. The biggest risk right now is to the 35 to 44-year-old male, and the 18 to 34-year-old male is second. So this shows you that this is no longer a senior-centric focus for criminals on the phones, because I think that seniors have gotten either better at spotting it, or if you recall from the very early slide, it's underreported. And a lot of times when folks are victims of fraud, there is a level of shame, or perhaps they haven't even spotted that they've been defrauded, so they don't report. And it's really, really important to report if you are a victim. And the FBI and the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Communication Commission, they're the ones who all deal with crimes through the phone or through the internet. So it's really important to report. So what are the tricks when it comes to phone scams? One, without a doubt, your caller ID lies to you. You cannot trust the number that's coming across your caller ID. When they're using internet-based calling, they could be calling from the Ukraine, or they could be calling from Illinois. They can disguise their number to make it look like they're calling from next door, from the police, from anywhere. True story, I was home alone, my cell phone rang, it was my home phone calling me. So know that with spoofing and cloning technology, you cannot trust your caller ID. So the goal of the scammers is to trigger what they call the lizard brain, that sort of instinctive emotional response to whatever the trigger is, right? Whether they're offering you phantom riches, or they're trying to make it seem like there's somehow, hey, I'm with the police department, I'm with the sheriff's office, or I'm with, PEPCO. Whether they're trying to claim that, oh, you know what, your neighbors are hiring, or we're in the neighborhood and your neighbors have hired us to do whatever it is, siding, roofing, whatnot. So this notion that, your friends are doing it. Reciprocity. Sometimes they try to come up with some kind of a deal where you give them something, they give you something, and it makes it seem like you guys are doing some kind of a arm's length negotiation. Or they try to tell you, hey, this is almost running out. If you don't get it now, offer won't be there for very long. Or they try to outright scare you. We're going to arrest you. The cops are coming because you haven't paid your bill, or you missed jury duty, or we're going to cut off your power and it's 20 degrees outside. So they try to trigger that emotional response so that you're not thinking with your brain, you're thinking with your heart, as I always say it. How to avoid phone scams. Obviously, you have to trust your instincts. Screen your calls. Your voicemail, your landline, answering machine are your best friends. Let the machine pick it up, and then you can then call back. If you pick up and there's that dead air, or you hear this bloop, then you know it's a robo dialer calling you. Just hang up. And right now, because everyone's working from home, IT support scams are huge, but remember, you have to usually go chase down your IT department. They're not going to come to you and tell you that there's a problem. And if you end up talking with someone over the phone about something, don't close the deal. Give yourself time to think, research, talk to someone, and then call the person back on a number you have. So if they claim they're Amazon or your bank, and they are calling because you've had some kind of fraud or whatnot, make sure that you call your bank or you call Amazon on a phone number you have, because scammers will always give you the phone number of the person in the cubicle next to them. And as you can see from the fortune cookie on this particular slide, you're probably getting about 4 calls a day about your last notice of your auto warranty is about to expire. And you hope and pray that it really is the last call, but no, they keep calling you. These kinds of outfits have been shut down by the Federal Trade Commission for violating the do not call list. They don't care. Are they a scam in the sense that they're just trying to take your money? We don't know. Actually, our advisory committee right now is doing a survey to try to get some information from people who have bought these warranties that are offered over the phone. It may be that you're actually buying a warranty, but in the end, it really doesn't cover a lot of what you need repaired, or it may be perfectly fine. We just don't know. And if you're thinking of getting an extended warranty on your car, go into the dealership. At least you're dealing with a human. You can ask all your questions, and you know that this transaction's happening in Montgomery County, and the Montgomery County law is covering you. So be aware that the 500 calls you're going to get this month about your auto warranty expiring, report it to the Federal Trade Commission, and maybe they can eventually stop getting them to stop calling you, which would be great. And when you're dealing with phone calls, try not to say yes, which is really, really hard. There's been incidences where folks have been slammed into unwanted subscription. And so all of a sudden they'll start getting stuff in the mail, and they get billed for it saying, you agreed to get all this stuff, and they have a voice recording of you just saying yes. It's really, really hard because they'll say, hi, is this Tracy? And you want to say yes. And so you have to be very careful to say who's calling, what do you ask, and just don't use the word yes, because it makes it that much harder. For folks who's joined us since we started, I just want to let you know that this is recorded, and we will have it available on YouTube later this week. And for some reason, I am not able to get to the next slide. There we go. Are there any questions on phone scams before I move on to online safety? Okay, thank you. So going on, so what is identity theft? Identity theft happens when someone steals your personal information and then uses it without your permission. So it's literally the opposite of a power of attorney. And the identity theft not only disrupts your finances and your credit history, but most folks don't realize it can interrupt medical care or insurance. So we have a lot of anecdotal stories where folks haven't gotten medication or because their identity thief is allergic to it, or they haven't been able to get life insurance or maybe even a job because the identity thief has some kind of a medical condition that makes insurance or the job not possible. So those are the sleeper crimes that happen with identity theft. So where is your data, and where are you handing your data over? So obviously your doctor's office has got your medical data. They do not need your social security number. A lot of doctor's offices still, as a matter of habit on their forms, request your social security. They don't need it for insurance. They don't need it for identification. I have not provided it in about a dozen years. It's never hindered anything. Your social security number is probably the most valuable piece of data to criminals that there is. Schools obviously have a lot of information on folks, and so does your job. Now, those are the places that you have to give over a certain amount of information in order to be able to get the job or the medical care or the education. But then there's places where you choose to give information over. So if you have one of those giant bonus cards, for example, they probably want to know what your birth date is or something like that. You don't have to give them the real birth date. You go to your favorite restaurant, they want you to be part of the rewards program. What's your anniversary date? Don't give them the real one. If you just want a coupon for the month of your anniversary, just give them another day in that month. So be very, very picky as to what you give people. And then ask them, why do you want this? How are you going to secure this? Why do you need this in order for me to process my transaction with you? Be very stingy with your information. Less is definitely more when it comes to sharing data. So this whole area has its own vocabulary. And so we're going to go through this really quickly. So phishing is phony and phishing, and that's when you give information through email. So that could be like you're linking on something that you shouldn't and downloading malware or a virus, or you could be responding to those sextortion scams that was just running rampant through everybody's email in the last year. Charity scams were huge and they were coming to your email. Smishing is the same thing, except it's through SMS, your text, your WhatsApp, your WeChat, Facebook Messenger, all of the chat functions in all of those apps. You are still giving them access through that platform. And so RoboKiller said that about 86 billion spam texts were sent and 101 million in losses were reported. And again, this is, as I mentioned, is going to be woefully underreported. Vishing, on the other hand, is when you are dealing with a voice and phishing. So again, this is another fancy way of saying that you guys are essentially giving out information through the phone. So it could be phone scams, and you're giving them information to your bank account, information to maybe you're handing over gift card data so that they can just take the money over the gift card. Again, RoboKiller said that about 71 billion spam calls they had noted. And I remember these numbers are all about what gets reported to which platform. So these numbers are going to sound very different. And only 615 million in losses that they were able to track. So one of the big ones is the Google voice verification that's going around right now. That is when you're selling something on Facebook, Marketplace, Craigslist, maybe Nextdoor, and someone says, look, I'm interested in buying this, but I want to make sure that I know who I'm dealing with. And I'm going to send you a code. Can you confirm that this is the code? Well, little do you know, they're trying to set up a Google Voice account using your phone number, and that code is coming from Google, and you're essentially giving authorization. So now your phone number is being misused through the internet, Google Voice, to make all kinds of calls in your name. Again, this is all you giving information over. Hacking is quite the opposite. They are breaking into a system to misuse the data, and it's taken without your permission. So when you see these words, these are what they all mean. I want to talk about all the different kinds of bad programming that are out there. So Trojans is like the big umbrella that all of them fall under. Most of us are familiar with a virus that just causes a malfunction. Spyware is what captures all of those keystrokes or maybe your personal identifying information like your bank account numbers and your passwords. Ransomware, you've probably heard all about that pipeline where essentially they shut down the system and said, pay us money or you won't get your system back online. and rootkits, worms, netbots. These are all different kinds of malware that have a very specific function once they get downloaded. And opening emails, attachments to emails, clicking on them, whether they come in text or emails, they even pictures, PDFs. I mean, they can hide these programs in everything. So how do you deter being a victim? Shred your documents, whatever, bank statements, insurance statements, EOBs, whatever has your personal identifying information, account numbers, anything like that, shred them. Don't carry your social security number. You want to make sure your your software is up to date. So anytime your system prompts you to update it, make sure that you're doing it. And keep in mind, your phone's a computer, your laptop, your tablet, your desktop, whatever it is, they all need to have the most up-to-date software on it. If you have the ability on your cell phone to do like a face recognition or a thumbprint, add that on there because it gives you a second layer of protection. We talked about not giving out personal data. We've talked about not clicking on links and things when it comes to emails that you're not expecting. You may get emails from USPS saying, oh, congratulations, you've got a package coming in, track it. Or you may get something that looks a lot like it's coming from your bank and they want you to click here because there's been fraud. It's that lizard brain. Don't click. Call your bank, call Amazon. If you're expecting a package, I don't know really why the congratulations are in order, but maybe you're waiting for it, but avoid clicking on unsolicited or unexpected emails or texts. You want to make sure that your passwords are passphrases with symbols and numbers. So I always use I love kumquats as my crazy passphrase. And if you can see on the slide, you change the O to a 0, the E to a 3, and the A is an @ sign. And so you can come up with a passphrase. You use a different passphrase for each account. You can use a password manager. Just make sure the password manager is highly secure and encrypted. Don't put checks or gift cards in the mail. There's been a rash of mail theft where they're looking for checks and they'll wash the checks, they'll create counterfeits, or they'll just take that check and rewrite it to themselves. You want to make sure your Wi-Fi has got a strong password. You want to make sure it's WPA2 or better. And if you have to use a public Wi-Fi, you should use a VPN. And most of the security software that you have comes with a VPN option. And if you get any kind of fake text, you can forward them to 7726 so that the FCC can keep a track of them. QR codes. This has been a huge uptick in these at restaurants. Payment apps, you'll go and folks will have like a QR code for, oh, you can pay me using Venmo, for example. Could be for company websites for more information or package tracking. It's very convenient, but the risk is that someone tampers with the QR code or puts their own QR code out there in the public to trick you into thinking it belongs to whatever the establishment is. So you want to make sure that there's not a sticker over the code, that that it doesn't look like it, that it should be there. Like if you're walking into Macy's, there should not be a QR code for Nordstrom's, for example. So you want to just make sure that you're not just indiscriminately using these the codes on your phone. Peer-to-peer payment apps, Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, there's a lot of them. We have seen a lot of scams coming in where folks have paid using these, and this is very important. These are called peer-to-peer, meaning that you are paying somebody who is a peer, someone that you know. These are supposed to be for face-to-face transactions. There's quick and easy way of giving it money, but they don't have consumer protections. And I cannot underscore that enough. If you pay by credit card, you've got the Fair Credit Billing Act that says, hey, I can dispute this. I may only be on the hook for $50. That's for your credit card. Debit cards, which those check cards that have the Visa MasterCard logo, that goes under the Electronic Funds Transfer Act. And has less protections than a credit card. And so if you're shopping online, credit card is king. But at least those give you some rights. These payment apps could very well be considered pure cash transactions, especially if you mark it as gift or for a friend. There is no clawing that back at that point. And so be very, very, very careful if you're being asked to use these payment apps when you are dealing with an online, non-face-to-face transaction with a merchant that you don't know where to find later. So Venmo especially is a problem when it comes to security, because if you don't set it up and change the setting, every transaction you enter into in Venmo ends up on their Twitter page. And so that allows people to know what you're buying with Venmo, and then can use it to perhaps target you down the road. I jumped ahead a little bit, but these, this goes through your payment options. So obviously, as I mentioned, credit card is king when you're shopping online. Debit cards, because they are linked to your bank account, if the criminals get a hold of it, they can wipe you out. And by the time you get some or hopefully all of your money back, you're now haven't been able to pay your bills. Money transfer services are very, very risky. That was a huge way of the Nigerian prince scam, was just funneling money out of the US using Western Union. Lately, we've been seeing some indications that folks that are going into a real estate transaction, somehow, somewhere along the way, somebody is hacked and they know that you are talking to your realtor about a real estate transaction, and you're getting an email that says you have to wire your earnest money deposit here. And so people are wiring their life savings that they've been saving to buy this house straight into a criminal's bank account. We've talked about mobile pay and why those are not meant for online orders with complete strangers. What you're probably seeing a lot now with online is these buy now, pay later transactions. They are not covered by the Fair Credit Billing Act because it's not a credit card, it's not open-ended, and it's not an electronic funds transfer either. So that doesn't apply. So it's really unclear exactly what protections you're going to get with these BNPL payment options, and you probably see them now on Amazon. I think I've seen them lately in some of the other regular online places. So be careful when choosing how you're paying online based on what protections you have if you are end up dealing with a criminal on the other end. We talked about payment apps, and don't double and triple check the address and the username. Sometimes the person you're talking to could be John Smith, and they're giving you an email to send a payment to that's Jane Doe, and you're like, well, why are they two different? Like, who are you really? And any kind of multi-factor authentication that you can add to your payment apps is really important. Fake social media accounts. This is mainly there to get you to buy into something, whether they're advertising fake products for a pop-up website. The products don't exist, or they do, but they're counterfeit, or they're there to just steal your money or your personal information. Fake social media accounts are used to set up romance scams. or to just spread false information, which we've seen a lot of, especially lately. So how can you figure out if you're dealing with a fake social media account? You can take the photograph that they're using as theirs and put it into a Google image search and see if it's a stock photo. You can see how much engagement there is with the followers. Research the owner and see if there's any reviews or any complaints that it's a scam. Sometimes, you know, you'll see they're advertising a shoe and people are like commenting about it was a pretty dress, and you're like, well, that doesn't match. And then, you know, how old is this account? Did they just set it up and now all of a sudden they have like hundreds of followers? Does that really make sense? So these are ways that you can sort of make sure that if you're interacting with someone off of social media, that is safe. I know I've thrown out a lot. Is there any questions on these topics?
Tracy, what about the credit cards or the debit cards with the chip? Because when those were introduced, they made it sound like the chip is supposed to protect your card, make it a little bit more safer for you to conduct transactions with them. How is that? I mean, doesn't seem to be. I know I was compromised too about
Right. So I had a little bit on that. I kind of went through it. So originally when you swiped it, those magnetic swipes, it basically broadcast all of your credit card information. And the gangs, there's like the story, I think it was Hannaford, was up in the Northeast, it's a grocery chain. You had Eastern European gangs or an Eastern European mob that was just sitting in Hannaford parking lots, just downloading all this data that was going through every time someone was charging at this grocery store. So the chip was used to encrypt that data so that they could never download all of the information. So the chip is way safer than those scanners when you swipe your card. And in fact, if you have to swipe your card, and some of the retailers still don't have chip readers, believe it or not, or their chip reader's not working, if you swipe and the data is lost, the penalties to that retailer are immense. So tap and pay doesn't transmit your name or your card or the 3-digit security. So tap and pay is fairly safe. The chip is encrypted. Swiping, like, just avoid swiping. That's probably the best advice I can give.
Thank you.
So romance scams is yes, love you, send me money, as the candy says. It's more than a broken heart. So it's catfishing. It's not, it's not a fun, entertaining TV show on MTV. These folks, these criminals, are amazingly talented and adept. They'll use social media to create a fake persona. They will find you on dating websites, gaming apps, other places, whatever they can find you online. They'll create a false identity to match yours so that they look attractive to you. And then they'll reel you in. They'll base it on your interest, on your faith, on your hobbies, whatever. And then it could be a man pretending to be a woman pretending to be a man. There's this, Dr. Phil did this multi-part series last year where this man in Texas thought he was dating a nurse in Pennsylvania who couldn't come travel and see him because of the pandemic, because Lord knows she was very busy as a nurse. And this person would send photographs of herself all the time. And the daughter grew concerned because the dad was sending money to help her, with whatever the emergency was at the time. And it turned out the photographs belonged to these twin Scandinavian Instagram stars. And there was no nurse in Pennsylvania. In fact, the person they were finally traced it down to was a 20-some-odd-year-old man in Nigeria. So in 2020, $304 million was stolen. But again, this is an underreported. Folks are ashamed. They don't want to report it. And so this is a huge problem out there right now as well. Any questions on romance scams? So door-to-door scams, when the scammers are actually come knocking. So what kind of scams are we going to see? Over the summer, you're going to see folks might come around selling candy or magazines. Maybe they'll say they're coming, there'll be kids at your door. They're trying to earn money for a camp. You'll never get the magazine. Who knows how old the candy is? And frankly, the kids may not get the camp they were promised. They could be just dropping off, a car load of kids in neighborhoods. There's no oversight, and it's actually dangerous for the children themselves. Home improvement, they might come to your door and say, oh, you know what? I had all this leftover stuff at your neighbor's house. And they thought I could do you a solid and help you out. Well, if you're really a good home improvement contractor, then you're not going to overbuy. You're going to buy just what you need. You're not going to have extra anything left over. And so they'll pretend it's some neighbor that you maybe have never heard of 5 streets over had suggested you or whatever. So you have to be careful about those guys when they come, or gals, when they come knocking. Energy scammers, they will come door to door. Hi, I'm from Pepco, and if you show me your bill, I can save you money because you might be paying too much. I know of no business that will go door to door and say, pay me less. There may be some programs that Pepco wants to offer folks, but chances are they are not going to get aggressive at your front door. Maryland is a deregulated energy state, which means that Pepco will be your servicer, but your energy can be supplied by anybody, kind of like your mortgage. Your lender could be, SunTrust, but your servicer could be, Aquin or something. So these guys won't leave your door. They'll say, oh, you know what? I'm going to get fired unless I check this box that I saw your bill. They want to see your bill because they want your account number. And once they have the account number, they can switch your supplier. You won't know it because you're still getting your bills from Pepco. And then, early on in the pandemic, there was some folks in other parts of the country that were reporting people coming door to door saying, hey, I'm from WHO, I'm from CDC, and we're doing COVID testing door to door. That wasn't happening. Parking lot pirates. This is something that was not happening door to door, and it's very scary that it now is. There are these dent repair scam artists that approach people in parking lots saying, hey, I've got a business. They might even point out their car and that has one of those magnetic signs on that says, Sam's Auto Body or, Tony's Auto Repair or whatever. And they'll say, look, I can do it for free. I've got, not for free, for cheap. I've got all the supplies in my car. I've even seen them show up with their wife and kids in the car to lend them some kind of, reliability. They'll put this, they'll poke holes in the car to take the dents out. They'll cover it with this paste and then tell you to wait 2 days before you wash it. Well, 2 days later, you wash it, and what do you find? You find holes in your car, and now you've lost money. So you have a hole in your bank account, you have a hole in your car. So these parking lot pirates approach you in the parking lots, but now they're advertising through junk faxes, and we've gotten 2 incidents of them going door to door in Silver Spring and in Olney, trying to sell it based on the car they're seeing out in the driveway. Avoid these mobile auto repair dent scammers out there. So who are legitimately coming to your door? Obviously, at the beginning of the late spring, early summer, window, door, siding, solar folks would be there. You're going to get religious, folks coming in to talk about their faith. Census takers could have been there in 2020. If they're selling you something, you always want to ask for their door-to-door salesman's license that the Department of Permitting Service provides. If they say, I don't have one, my boss has one, or it's back at the office, say, no, thank you, close the door. Whoever is knocking needs to have the license. It's not one license for a team of salesman. It's a per salesman license. If you think there's a scam, let us know. We'll put out an alert so that folks can be aware that there may be a scam or a scheme brewing in a particular area. Woodchucks, I think I mentioned them early on. So unfortunately, a lot of the home improvement contractors, good ones, not so good ones, may not have a license to do home improvement in Maryland. Woodchucks are a completely different breed of unlicensed home improvement contractor. They could be storm chasers, so they're there to clean up debris. There could be landscapers, and while they're up in your tree, they see that there's a problem with your roof, with your gutters, with your siding, or they talk you into coming into the house and they see that you need painting work or whatever. The con is they'll take a deposit and they say, why don't you give me a deposit? I'll come back tomorrow to finish. They'll take your deposit. They will never come back. Or they'll take your insurance money and disappear. If they come back, they're going to do substandard work. It'll be unpermitted because obviously they don't have a license, so they can't get a permit. They'll give you a fake name. They'll have an invoice. It's all handwritten. It says invoice across the top, fake name, fake phone number, and you just can't find them again. So woodchucks are a special breed of unlicensed contractor that we and Montgomery County Police, as well as police in Prince William County, Fairfax County, DC, and Howard County have been working on. For some reason, a lot of the woodchucks come out of Culpeper County. Don't know why. Out of Culpeper, Virginia, I should say. And so that's why Prince William County has been such a good partner with the Woodchucks Task Force. Any question on door-to-door scams? Okay, we'll move on to mail scams. And it's not just about junk mail. So when email became huge, our mail, the junk that came in the mail went to email, and then our email junk filter became really, really useful, and it filtered out all of the scams to a pretty good degree. So now they're back in our mailboxes. So mail marauders, I mentioned them earlier. They're the ones who steal your checks for counterfeiting, or they steal your, if you're sending out any kind of gift cards around the holidays, they'll steal those. Porch pirates, they're the ones that are new age shoplifters. Instead of stealing stuff out of the stores, or stealing the things that you're delivering to your door. Scammers can divert your mail by going to the post office and changing your address. I had someone who was a victim of identity theft. They stopped getting mail. So they go to the post office and they see a big bucket of their mail. Someone had diverted it, and in it they saw all of these bills for accounts they didn't actually have. So if you think that there's been some kind of fraud or scam connected to your mail, report it to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. And you can let us know so that we can then put it out as an alert. So what kind of scams are we seeing in the mail? Free lunches, folks probably have been offered free lunches. Come and listen to something. Multi-level marketing, pyramid schemes, amazing deals or on investments, things like that. Go for the free lunch by all means. Don't sign anything until you can come home, do your own research. Remember the lizard brand. They tell you that time is limited. There's a scarce number of spots. Whatever it is to get you to act now, that also works when the scam starts in your mail. Overpayment scams, folks buying things off of Craigslist. You're selling it for $100. They mail you $200 and they're like, oh, can you just mail me back the extra? I misunderstood. So go ahead and deposit the check. And most folks think the check clears in 2 to 3 days, but that's only the bank essentially fronting you that money while they go through the whole presentment process. It could take up to 2 weeks for a check to really clear. So when the bank fronts you the money and it shows up in your account, that check hasn't cleared. And so folks think, oh, the check's cleared. I'll write the check for $100 and mail it back. And now you're out $100 because that check's going to bounce. We're seeing a lot of Publishers Clearinghouse and other lottery or sweepstakes winnings coming in the mail. one gentleman who was one of our scam busters, he brought the letter to us. This is, oh, he'd won millions of dollars from Publisher Clearinghouse. The letter was a poor quality. It was kind of skewed off the page a little bit. And in it, there was a check. There was a check from the Fortune Society for whatever the tax was. Isn't this great? Not only did you win money, but someone's paying your taxes. All you have to do is deposit it and write that amount of money to us. And here's our address. Well, obviously that check wasn't going to clear because, as it turned out, it was written on this nonprofit's payroll account because they were basically counterfeiting these checks. Work from home scams. I mentioned folks are unwittingly becoming mules, receiving stolen goods and shipping them out. They're getting these jobs as mail forwarders, freight forwarders, what have you. Or they may be getting software in the mail that they need to use for a job. And really what that software is doing is stealing everything off of your computer. You might be getting offers for psychics, or offer some kind of letters from foreign political figures. Maybe the prince, the Nigerian prince, wants to give you money, or some Canadian guy has died and you're the only next of kin that they've been able to track down. So those things are still coming to your mailbox. And so that takes us to the end of our program. And at the bottom is our website, where you will find a library A to Z of all kinds of good resources and information, as well as links to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, as well as our YouTube page. Our tag is Consumer Wise on all of our social media platforms. So make sure you follow us so that you can be the first to know when we send out any alerts. If you have questions, feel free to email us at consumer@montgomerycountymd.gov. And at this point, I can open it up for any questions.